If Wolverine showed us anything, it's that there's a version of strength that looks loud. It punches walls, growls at people, drinks too much, pretends it doesn't care. But there's also another version of strength, the kind that learns to hold a flower without crushing it. That is Logan. So today, we are going to talk about one of the most violent characters in superhero history and how his real story was never about rage. It was about learning how to become gentle, about whether a wounded person can become safe again, whether someone shaped by pain can still choose tenderness. And honestly, Wolverine is the perfect character for this conversation because he's basically what would happen if trauma grew sideburns and started smoking cigars in the woods. Let's get into it. Welcome back, fellow mages, to the Grounded Mage, where we explore how myth and magic exist in everyday life. Now, if you only know Wolverine from the movies, you know him as angry, stabby, sarcastic, emotionally unavailable, and somehow always in a tank top despite living in Canada, which, as a Canadian myself, is deeply relatable because I was actually going to wear this epic sweater for this recording, but it's way too hot in here, so I had to decide against it. Anyway, shout out to all of us snow people. But Logan's story is actually really heartbreaking. Born James Howlett in the 1800s, Logan experienced trauma very early in his life, witnessing his father, or at least the man he thought was his father, the man who was raising him, still a dad, being unalived by his actual biological father. I mean, talk about rage inducing and confusing. I'd probably discover some hidden power in that moment too. From that point onward, his life becomes an endless cycle of war, exploitation, experimentation, loss, and survival. He fought in wars, lost people over and over again, was used as a weapon, had his memories manipulated, and then there's the whole Weapon X thing where they literally bonded adamantium to his skeleton in one of the most horrifying experiments in Marvel history. Imagine waking up every day with a body that remembers pain. That's Logan. And psychologically, this matters because trauma researchers often talk about how prolonged trauma changes the nervous system itself, not just emotionally, but biologically. Your brain starts prioritizing survival over connection. This is why people who have been hurt deeply sometimes become reactive, emotionally distant, hypervigilant, aggressive, or numb. It's not because they're evil, it's because their nervous system learned the world is dangerous. Stay ready. Logan is basically a walking nervous system with claws. One of the most consistent patterns in Wolverine's story is this: he leaves, or at least he tries to. Every time he gets close to someone, he fears becoming dangerous to them. And this connects deeply to attachment theory. Psychologist John Bowlby proposed that our early experiences shape how safe connection feels to us. People with relational trauma often develop avoidant patterns. Don't get too close. I'll only hurt you. People leave anyway. Logan constantly acts like a lone wolf. But here's the thing: real wolves aren't lone wolves most of the time. The phrase actually became popular because of a misunderstanding of wolf behavior. Wolves survive in packs. Isolation is usually distress, not dominance, which makes Wolverine deeply tragic. Because beneath all the toughness is someone desperate for belonging. You see it with Professor X, the X Men, Rogue, Kitty Pryde, and especially Laura Kinney in Logan. And this is where his transformation really starts. Not when he becomes stronger, but when he becomes softer. There's this weird cultural myth that healing means becoming harmless because you're weak. But Logan teaches us something different. Gentleness is not the absence of power, it's power under guidance. Anyone can lash out, That's impulse. But learning restraint, learning care, learning to protect instead of destroy, that takes integration. Carl Jung, yes, we're back to one of our favorite psychologists here on the Grounded Mage, talked about the shadow, the parts of ourselves that we suppress, reject, or fear. Logan's shadow is obvious: rage, violence, animal instinct. But Jung believed healing doesn't come from pretending the shadow doesn't exist. It comes from integrating it consciously. And Wolverine learns this slowly over time. He stops trying to become less dangerous. Instead, he learns how to become responsible for his danger. That's maturity. And this is one of the reasons Wolverine resonates emotionally with many men. Because a lot of men grow up hearing, don't feel, don't cry, be tough, handle it by yourself. But unprocessed pain doesn't disappear, it leaks, usually as anger. There's a famous psychological idea sometimes called the anger iceberg. Anger is often the visible emotion sitting on top of deeper emotions underneath: grief, shame, fear, loneliness, helplessness. Logan's rage is almost never just rage, it's grief with claws. Okay, so the main reason we watch Wolverine is for the fights. But what makes him beautiful as a character is the little moments. The moments where gentleness sneaks through the cracks. Like when he protects kids or teaches younger mutants or awkwardly tries to comfort someone despite having the emotional communication skills of a raccoon in a leather jacket. These moments matter because they reveal something important psychologically. Healing almost never happens all at once. It happens in micro moments. Research on neuroplasticity shows that the brain changes through repeated experiences. Tiny acts of safety, trust, and connection can gradually reshape old patterns. Logan doesn't become gentle overnight. He practices it. Badly at first, very badly. I mean, this is a man whose default communication style is growling and threatening people in bars. But that's part of the transformation. Not becoming perfect. No one is. What he becomes is available. So, here are some of my favorite examples of Logan micro healing moments, but trust me, his transformation is full of them. Like in X-Men when he protects Rogue. At first, he clearly wants to be left alone. He's gruff, sarcastic, emotionally closed off, basically a human do not disturb sign with claws. But then Rogue gets hurt. And suddenly, this man who acts like he cares about nobody is carrying her through a train station, looking genuinely terrified that something might happen to her. He doesn't suddenly become warm and cuddly, but his actions reveal attachment before his words can. And that's real. A lot of wounded people struggle to verbally express care, but it shows up in their actions. And then there's his relationship with Kitty Pryde in multiple X-Men stories. Logan often becomes strangely patient with younger mutants, which is funny because this is a man whose communication style usually sounds like, leave me alone, growls aggressively. But with younger characters, he becomes protective rather than reactive. And psychologically, mentoring others often helps people heal fragmented parts of themselves. There's actually research showing that caregiving and mentorship can increase emotional meaning, empathy, and identity stability. In simple terms, sometimes helping someone else grow helps us reconnect to our own humanity. But one of the best examples is in Logan with Laura, because Laura is basically a mirror of him. Same rage, same violence, same trauma, same survival instincts. At first, Logan treats her like an inconvenience. Like, absolutely not. I am not emotionally adopting this murder child. But slowly, he changes. There's that moment in the farmhouse at the dinner table, and it feels small compared to all of the action scenes. But psychologically, it's massive. For maybe the first time in years, Logan experiences something close to ordinary human connection: family dinner, conversation, laughter, belonging. And you can see how uncomfortable that makes him, because wounded people often become more familiar with chaos than safety. Safety can actually feel vulnerable. That's something trauma psychology talks about a lot. The nervous system can become so adapted to survival mode that peace itself feels suspicious. And yet, Logan stays. Even briefly, he lets himself participate. That matters. And then there's the ending with Laura. Without spoiling every detail, Logan finally stops seeing himself as just a weapon. He becomes a protector, a father figure, a guide. Not because the rage disappeared, but because love became stronger than the instinct to isolate. And honestly, that may be the most realistic portrayal of healing in superhero movies. Not, I'm completely fixed now, but I still carry pain and I choose connection anyway. Over time, Logan learned how to stay, how to care, how to mentor, how to let people matter. That is real healing. I want to talk a little bit more about Logan's relationship with Laura because, wow, the Logan movie is basically what if emotional exhaustion became a Western? Older Logan is tired, broken, cynical, and at first, he wants nothing to do with Laura. But slowly, painfully, and yes, unwillingly, he begins to care about her. And psychologically, this is fascinating because trauma survivors often fear attachment not because they can't love, but because they know how devastating loss feels. To love someone is to risk grief. Logan has lost so many people that emotional distance became his survival mechanism. But Laura changes that. And here's the beautiful part: his healing doesn't come from becoming peaceful first, it comes from choosing responsibility before he's ready. That's very real psychologically. Sometimes actions lead to your emotions. You don't wait until you feel healed to act differently. You practice new ways of being while still carrying your wounds. So, can the wound itself become gentle? I think Logan's answer is yes, but not by erasing the wound, not by pretending the anger never existed, not by becoming soft in the shallow sense. Real gentleness is earned, it's forged. It's someone who knows exactly how much damage they could do and choosing to love anyway. That's why Wolverine matters, because he reminds us that healing is not becoming less powerful, it's becoming safe with your power. And maybe some of us need to hear that. Maybe your anger isn't proof you're broken forever. Maybe your defensiveness was protection once. Maybe your isolation made sense once. But survival strategies are not identities. You're not doomed to remain emotionally frozen because pain taught you to armor yourself. Logan's story says the animal can learn tenderness, the wounded self can learn gentleness. Not perfectly, not instantly, but slowly, intentionally, humanly. So, here's a few questions that I want to leave you with this week. Where in your life do you confuse gentleness with weakness? What emotional armor once protected you that now may be isolating you? Are there people trying to love you that you keep at a distance out of fear? And what would it look like to become safe with your own strength? Thanks for listening. If this episode connected with you, I have created something specifically for people walking through their own transformation journey. The Grounded Mage's Hero's Journey Journal includes prompts, reflections, guided exercises built around the stages of growth, healing, and identity. There's a free preview available if you want to explore it first, and if it resonates with you, the full version is available for purchase as well. Those links are in the description down below. Think of it as your own map through the wilderness, hopefully with fewer adamantium related injuries. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who's learning that strength and gentleness don't have to be enemies. And tell me in the comments, which fictional character do you think shows the healthiest version of strength? Next week, we are exploring life lessons from one of the dearest friends from our childhood, the one and only Iron Giant. Until next week, fellow mages, make it make magic.